Hey there, West Michigan meteorologist Will Haney here, trying to get a little fancy with the countdown. What can I say? Figured I always wait a few seconds for folks to get in the room anyways, so let me know what you think. We are still tracking some lake effect snow. It has not stopped snowing in over 2 weeks, essentially. Well, that's a bit of blasphemy. It has stopped snowing intermittently, but it has snowed every single day for the last 15 days in Kalamazoo. So, yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a winter, and we're not done yet. We're still going to see some more tonight, tomorrow. And the cold not really going anywhere, although I do have some good news for the temperatures. They are going to they'll be a little bit more tolerable towards the end of the weekend and early next week, but still staying, pretty cold by this time of year standards even. So let's jump in here. Let me share this really quickly to my page. That's what I'm doing, looking down for just a second, and then we'll get this thing going. All righty. So let's dive in here and see what this lake effect looks like on radar. So wind is starting to shift. It was kind of more westerly today, which brought lake effect, to a good portion of our area. A little bit earlier on, we were seeing lake effect confined to Ottawa, Allegan counties. Like earlier this evening, we saw a little bit of a break closer to Kalamazoo, Battle Creek. And now we're seeing kind of a secondary push through the Kalamazoo area. I was just outside, and it's just that steady light snow that's coming down. This isn't quite as intense of pockets of snow as we saw even yesterday, although I will say this band, that looks like it's near Fenville right now, looks decently strong. So that would be like up towards, like kind of a little northeast of Fenville, really, towards Heath, for example, right along M40 there, a little southeast of Saugatuck. That's a decent little burst. Decent band. That's probably our strongest, that slightly darker shade of blue right in the middle of the screen. Let me make this radar a little bigger. Stand by. See if I can remember which button. Nope, I can never remember. There we go. So yeah, that slightly darker blue that you see there. But these are, just what we've been dealing with the last several days, just off and on little intermittent bursts of snow, enough to reduce visibility and keep those roads pretty snowy out there. Here's just some crazy stats for you. I kind of mentioned this at the top of the stream, but today we hit 11 straight days below freezing. So those are highs at or below freezing in Kalamazoo. And then today was also the 15th straight day with at least some snowfall. If you're curious where we stand in the month of January so far, in Kalamazoo at least, these are our measurements here at Channel 3. Not the temperatures. The temperatures come from the National Weather Service. So we're about 3 degrees below average, that 21.7. I know that sounds like, oh, that's not that bad, but that accounts for highs and lows. And keep in mind, the first half of the month wasn't that earth-shatteringly cold. It's really been the second half of this month. Snow, we are pacing 10 inches above average for January up until this point. And we're likely to add on maybe a little bit more than that before it's all said and done. February begins on what day next week? 29th, 30th, or 1st? Okay, so it's February 1st on Sunday. So we might add a little bit more snow to the monthly total tonight, but after tonight, I think we'll see a little bit of a break for a few days. But it's pretty remarkable so far when we look at our year-to-date snowfall. This season, as of essentially today, we're basically in Kalamazoo. We've seen so much snow as what we would average in an entire season. I know that's kind of confusing because right here it shows average 42. So that average right there is through this point in the season what we would expect to have had. This 65 up here is what we have measured this year. So we're pacing almost 2 feet above average for this point in the season. What's pretty remarkable about that is our typical in an entire season is about 66 inches. So, think of how much more of winter is left. The fact that we've already essentially reached our season normal is pretty impressive. This is the snowiest winter we've seen, or at least the pace is the snowiest since the polar vortex year, the original polar vortex, the OG polar vortex, when that term was first in the national spotlight, was back in the 2013 to 2014 winter. It was a brutally cold and very snowy winter. We got over 100 inches of snow in Kalamazoo. It's the last season that we've seen that. And again, that was the winter of 2013 to 2014. We also saw a polar vortex season in 2019, 2018 into 2019, or 2019. It was 2018 into 2019. And that was also a pretty cold winter. All right. So with that lake effect that's out there, it's still coating the roads. On my drive back in after dinner, we're still seeing some folks spinning their wheels up Westnedge Hill. There was actually a decent little burst of snow that was coming down, and it quickly coated the roads again. So it's the same old song and dance. We still have this winter weather advisory, though, that's going to go through 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for as much as about 1 to 3 inches of snow. I think some of that has already come down. I think we're at about 1.25 inches so far today as a daily snowfall total in Kalamazoo, based on measurements that I just took outside. Hello, Ashley in Tennessee. Oh man, first ice storm you've made it through there. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, they deal with a lot more ice down there. And thank you to Mike for sharing. Appreciate that. Lori, good evening from Nashville. We got a couple people from Nashville, unless that's Nashville, Michigan. That might be Nashville, Michigan. Tina remembers the 2013 to 2014 winter. And hello to Jesse hello, Jesse. Callie, do you think we'll get some cold weather advisories for Friday? I think it's possible, Callie, although, and I hope I'm saying your name right, I think it's possible, although the wind is starting to look a little less significant. And also, if we don't clear up the cloud cover, if we see cloudy skies, it's could be a little bit harder for us to drop to that threshold, but it's going to be really close, which I'll get to in just a second. So again, just a different way. Let's look at the hour by hour here. What we're going to see the next 12 to 24 hours essentially is the wind is going to continue to pivot a little bit more northerly and eventually northeasterly by the end of the day tomorrow. What that's going to do is really focus the lake effect. This is now noon tomorrow, probably to a pretty confined band, very close to the lakeshore. So we're talking like out to about I-196 perhaps. But we'll have to watch that. It's very possible that band could be hovering right along the shoreline well into the afternoon before dissipating late tomorrow afternoon, evening. And then eventually we'll get even a more northeasterly wind, and that'll push potentially some lake effect down towards Chicago by like Friday and Saturday for them. Not going to be a big deal for us by that point. So this is just additional snow through Thursday evening. And again, some of this has already happened, but generally less than 1 inch, like Battle Creek, Marshall, you're not going to see much. You're seeing it right now, if anything, just some very light snow, where we could see maybe an additional 1 to 3, especially the higher end of that range would be most likely, I would say, places like Saugatuck, Fenville, Bangor, down into Holland, down into St. Joe, Benton Harbor area, pretty much near the lakeshore. This is one of those where you really, lakeshore, sometimes you all get kind of, the snow kind of blows through and blows inland. This is actually going to be, I think, if anything, almost like parked along the lakeshore for tomorrow. So that might inflate your total slightly. Not out of the question. We see even a little bit more than that 3-inch mark, but I think that would be very, very isolated. All right. What makes the snowflakes sparkle? They are not sparkling tonight. Have a safe trip home, Will, and your coworkers too. Jeanette, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer to that, to be honest. I'd have to look through some notes and things. But I know what you're talking about. I definitely know what you're talking about. Like, there are definitely those fresh snows that are extra sparkly. My guess is there's snow, there's tons of different types of snowflakes essentially, and different ice crystals essentially that form snowflakes. And my guess is at a certain temperature, the sort of crystals or snowflakes that form are just more conducive to sparkle. But I'd have to look that up. That's actually a great question. I like that question a lot. And but I wish I could give you a better, more precise answer. And it also might have to do too with the available like moonlight. I would think drier snow, like what we saw a few days ago, like the really cold powdery snow is probably ideal for that, because moisture in my brain would be like the wet snow. It probably doesn't sparkle much because it's got a lot of moisture in it. Could be wrong. All right. So someone was asking about cold weather advisories for Friday. I did want to mention that. I'm going to quickly show you and just talk about, so obviously we have this on the way tonight through tomorrow. We can handle it. Like I said, we've been adding on to that snow. It seems like every day. Got another inch or two, another inch or two, another inch or two, sometimes a little bit more than that. Fortunately, after tomorrow, so these are our daily snapshots here. Notice how Michigan, the lake, snow should be over the lake and possibly pushing towards Chicago on Friday afternoon. We should be quiet on Saturday. Still very cold. It's not going to be maybe super fun to be outside, but at least we're going to get a break from the snow. And then look at this, 22 degrees. Oh my gosh, on Sunday. And then, oh my gosh, 25 degrees. Although we might see a little bit of a clipper system on Monday, bring another light snow event. However, temperatures, oh my gosh, they're moving on up. Moving on up. You know that song? All right, future temperatures and wind chill. This is Friday morning. Emphasis on Friday morning. I'll show you the 7-day. We'll talk morning lows for tomorrow. Morning low for tomorrow is about 4 degrees. I think we'll have some sub-zero wind chills, but probably not the wind chills that we're going to be dealing with on Friday. So when we start getting to that like negative 15-ish range, then negative 15 to like negative 20-ish is usually where they at least are considering some cold weather advisories. Negative 20, generally, it can really fluctuate. However, school closings, if they were just based on pure cold, from what I have been told, is generally the threshold is around negative 20, generally speaking. When it starts getting there or colder, they'll definitely start considering closings. There's a lot of other factors right now at play, though, as to why we've seen some school closings this week. We still have some really icy, snow-packed roadways, especially the rural areas. And so that's why, in a large part, in addition to the cold, that some kiddos have had no school this week at times. There have been some. But anyways. But I just show you this because it's going to be no joke cold Friday morning, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning. In fact, I can even show you this. So again, I said this when I showed this the other day. Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. These are all low temperatures and wind chill. Oh, I got to fix that graphic. My L on chill is hidden behind our logo. So we have low temperature on top, the bottoming out of the wind chill on the bottom. So we have the minimum temperature, the minimum wind chill for the next 5 days. Wind chills tomorrow morning, probably around like -6 at coldest, whereas Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're starting to get to that range of like getting closer to -15. So again, that has my attention for just some really brutally cold nights and some sub-zero morning lows. That will be highly dependent on whether we get some clearing late Thursday night into Friday. If we start to lose the clouds, which is what we saw, by the way, last Friday and the Saturday, where we had that record cold, we got down to -18 early Saturday morning. If we see some clearing, it's certainly possible we could even be colder than this -4, -5. So we'll just have to kind of wait that out. The cloud cover models, or the models, have been a little bit less optimistic that we'll see the clearing. And therefore, I think I'm less convinced we're going to drop to like the crazy numbers we saw last weekend. However, I do think we'll have some really cold mornings. So I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, hopefully that makes some sense. Let me jump ahead here, and I'm just going to show you the 7-day really fast, and then we'll talk through it. And then I got to go because we got to go do the news thing. But appreciate all of you guys hopping on here. Glenn Miller, the Glenn Miller Band himself, is in Headland, Alabama. Huh. Good for you, Glenn Miller. That's pretty cool. I assume that's what you mean by AL. Mike, hello. And Mom and Pop Pug. Oh, we're changing the name again, y'all. Mom and Pop Pug. It's good to see y'all on here. All right, so here's your Weather Guard 7-day forecast. Snow tomorrow, mainly west of 131, but again, that advisory area, I'll show that before we leave. That is the main area for road concerns tomorrow. Through the weekend, we are cold, but at least we'll see some sun, and at least we don't have snow to worry about. I think the next system will be Monday with a light accum possible. And then look at that, upper 20s. Are you kidding me? Tuesday and Wednesday, bust out the shorts, the flip-flops by Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, it is going to feel like spring. It's going to feel amazing after this stretch that we have been in. So, like promised, let me show you really quickly the winter weather advisory, just in case you missed that. So here's who needs to just give yourself maybe a little bit extra time tomorrow morning. Hopefully you've been doing that because the roads have definitely not been ideal in most cases, but an additional 1 to 3 inches for this area of purple. This advisory as of now goes through 10 a.m. tomorrow. We'll see if they extend that perhaps for the lakeshore even into the afternoon. However, I don't think it should be too bad by later in the day. And hopefully, Rose, that answers your question. So primarily this area of purple is who's going to see maybe some lingering leak effect into the early morning hours tomorrow with some additional accumulation. However, the back roads and things without salt doing much right now, the road crews are doing the best they can, but there's still, plenty of roads. The lesser traveled roads that are still pretty snow packed and icy. So you just got to be extra careful. Even things like our parking lot. Jesse, I don't really predict snow days, man, but I mean, anything's possible at this point. But I do know a lot of school districts are starting to get through, if not all the way through, their allotment of snow days. So they might become a little bit more conservative on what constitutes a snow day. So that'll be interesting to see. Or more liberal. I don't know which one makes more sense. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I think maybe some lakeshore communities if we get a decent amount, but this isn't like a ton of snow overnight. It's just steady light snow where the roads are just going to be continually impacted, but not necessarily impassable, if that makes sense. And not like true whiteout conditions, but some pockets where it's just a little not great. So now I have another question. Snow day Friday for schools. Hard to say. I am leaning towards no. However, like I said, I don't really make those calls. And a lot of different variables go into that. Snow will not be an issue as far as additional accumulation or anything like that. I think Friday would primarily be due to if there were rural districts with some snow-packed or icy roads, especially gravel roads. That's a whole different spectrum of closings. However, I think I would guess you're asking because of the cold, and like I was saying a little earlier, it really depends. But I think as I see it now, I don't know if we'll get quite to that threshold that most districts are looking at for a closing based on pure cold. But hey, they've certainly closed when the wind chill hasn't been -20, and I've also seen schools that maybe could have closed that didn't, and there were some -20 wind chills. So hard to say, man. That's a science that I am glad I don't have to worry about, kind of. But thank you. Everyone's asking. This is why meteorologists, we dread talking about that, because I don't make those decisions, y'all. I just forecast the weather and I talk about the impacts. But yeah, I guess anything's possible. Start sleeping with your spoon under your pillow, I guess. Next weekend, though, again, improving conditions. And I do think hopefully by like Sunday, Monday, if the road crews, hopefully they'll be able to catch up a little bit given that the snow finally won't be falling like every other hour. And that'll help. And then certainly some sunshine to kind of get the roads a little looser as far as some of the ice and snow that's packed in there. And then, when we start getting temps in the 20s, that's when the salt can start to work again. So, maybe that's part of their snow removal process as we get towards the second half of the weekend and early next week, certainly. So hopefully that'll get our roads a little bit more clear. All right. Take care, everybody. And we'll see you tonight at 10 and 11. I think that's it. I think that'll do it. And I'm tired of this, Grandpa, says Marissa Haskin. Well, that's too dang bad. If you know that reference, I'm proud of you, Marissa. First of all, it's one of my favorite movies. Second of all, anyone that knows what movie that's from, you get a gold star. All right. Bye, everybody. Take care.